truth for the battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and today is our Talk of the Town, and we have Kevin Wilson with us.
Howdy.
Hey. So before we dive into today's topic, one thing that I definitely want to make sure that we mention to everybody, and this definitely aligns with Talk of the Town, is today's the beginning of Petitioning Day, which means today is the day where you can start going around your local town, village, county, district, whatever it is, and start carrying petitions to get signatures to get your candidate of choice on the ballot for a variety of offices that is opening up. I know in Monroe County we have county court, we have some assembly and senate districts open, and I think, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can also circulate federal petitions during this period as well.
That's right. Yep. So it's all the same, and then so the Libertarian Party will be having a couple petitions that are going to be around for those assembly candidates and those countywide candidates in Monroe County, and there may be a few other things coming up too, and we're going to have some exciting announcements about that coming up hopefully in the next couple weeks. And but no matter what party you're in, if you're Republican or Democrat, they're going to be out collecting petition signatures too. So if you hear someone knocking on your door and they look like a politician, I mean, you know, do what you want, but I'm probably, it might be me though, if you're a libertarian. So please be nice. We're just trying to get on the ballot.
Yeah, you know, it's really funny. I did a campaign, this I think 3 years ago now. I was out on a nice Sunday afternoon, going around, knocking on doors, trying to collect petitions, and I noticed, like, I could tell people were home, but nobody was answering the door. And as I'm going around, I noticed another group of people going around knocking on doors too. And they were dressed similar to me. You know, I was wearing a collared white shirt, some dress pants. And I realized that I was door knocking on a Sunday afternoon at the same time all the Jehovah Witnesses were out door knocking. And people more than likely assumed I was a Jehovah Witness and I was there to sell the good news of something, and I was there to sell the good news of my candidacy, but it wasn't what they thought. So, you know, I just give that whole story so that if you're a candidate or thinking about being a candidate and you're listening to the radio station right now or listening to us live, don't make the mistake I did. Choose another time, or, you know, wear some campaign swag or something like that so people know what you're doing.
Yeah, I try to do that. I'll have campaign stuff, which sometimes people like. Other times people will be like, "Oh, you're a politician." They'll slam the door. I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to get a politician on the ballot." And then, but I'll see some people in the window, and they'll kind of give me one of these little waves, like, "All right, come on, move along. I'm not going to open the door for you." And I'm like, "Look, man, you're an enrolled libertarian. I'm just trying to tell you about our candidates." But libertarians want to be left alone.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you know what's kind of funny is I actually have had people tell me, not libertarians specifically, because I've petitioned on multiple ballots, which you can do if you're what's called a commissioner of deeds, or if you're a notary, you can actually collect and witness petitions on more lines than your own. And I've had people say, "Hey, how do I unregister to vote? Because I don't like people knocking on my door." And it's like, dude, somebody knocked on your door once and now, like, you don't want to vote? Like, you know, come on. This is your civic duty. You should want to be engaged. You should take the opportunity to maybe ask a couple questions about the candidate, you know, have the opportunity to get to know who might be on the ballot. These are not things that people should be shooing away. This is something you should be really excited about. Somebody physically came to you. Like, how often does that happen? Very rarely.
So, yeah, no, I kind of love doing that because, well, my wife's a Democrat. She votes in every primary election. So all the Democrats come up to our house and they want to get her signature. So it's a lot of candidates most of the time. So whenever I get a candidate on there, I was like, well, I can't vote for you, but I'm gonna talk to you about your policies and and just hey, let me see if you deserve my vote. A lot of times the answer is no, but it's a good opportunity to just talk with people who may end up being my representatives in city council or county legislature or whatever.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, every chance and every opportunity that you get to talk to somebody who could be your elected official, like you should seize that opportunity, not just to hear what their stances are, but also to educate them on the things that they've got wrong. Because I tell you what, they have a lot of stuff wrong, and if it's not us educating them, it's somebody else who's educating them.
Oh yeah, no, you can talk to them about taxes, you can talk to them about spending, you could talk to them about civil liberties. Like some of these guys, like they've never even considered that argument. They've never been challenged on it, and some of these men and women who are running for office, and so hey, it's an opportunity to chat with them and hopefully get them to see a new perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've actually had people walk away saying, yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Why hasn't anybody ever said that before? And it's kind of funny because a lot of times I'm not saying anything new. They're just stuck in their own echo chamber, listening to their own people, and never considered an outside perspective because it didn't come from somebody within their party.
Yeah. And now the other thing I do want to mention before we move on to the next topic is that it's also time for county committee petitions as well. And I know I'm not entirely clear on the Republican or Democratic process, but I know the Libertarian Party, we're collecting for county committee petitions right now too. So if you want to be able to elect the county leadership, we're actually collecting petitions to get people on the ballot to, there could be a primary, but there probably wouldn't, but to elect the county chair and vice chair and officers and build an actual structure for the Libertarian Party. And I know the Democrats have something similar, I think, is going on this year, but I don't remember.
Yeah, the other parties, they do have something similar. Some of them, I think they want to keep it a secret. Surprise!
Hey, if you guys are Republican or Democrat, you can get on their county committees this way. You just need to look up the process, get a petition signed, and you can get on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know I believe it's the Democrats in the city of Rochester. I think they actually have primaries like almost every single time because they have so many people.
I have friends who've competed in primary elections for those county committee spots because at least in the city of Rochester for the Democrats, they got enough interest that they are competitive, and then those committees organized by county ledge district vote on the candidates that they're going to endorse, which means you get party resources in the primary, which a lot of people don't like. There's some controversy around that, but you get actual decisions that get made. And for instance, a sitting assemblyman didn't get the endorsement this year in one of the races that we're running a Libertarian candidate in the 138th, and so the mayor of Rochester chief of staff ended up getting that endorsement because he had people who were well organized and got in the committees, and he got the support, and in that case, he's able to capture the infrastructure of the Democratic Party to help out his campaign.
Yeah. So big takeaway here is if you're not involved in politics, somebody else is. And somebody else is involved in the process. Somebody else is pushing. Somebody else is fighting right now to make changes to your life, and you're essentially not having a say in it by not being engaged. So today's the day. Think about taking some action. Learn about petitioning. You've got, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that, Kevin?
Yeah, till the end of March. March 30th is when those get turned in.
So if you guys have questions about it, send us a message. We'll try to help you out. You're listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we're going to talk about presidential pardons.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
If you're looking to market and grow your business, make new business connections, and give back to the community in a meaningful way, consider joining the Greece Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're the largest suburban chamber in Monroe County, and we offer networking, education, marketing, insurance, and advocacy. You do not need to live or work in Greece to join. Our members come from throughout the region. In short, we're better together, and together, we're moving business forward. Visit greecechamber.org or call 585-227-7272 to join today.
Tom Walls started in 1955. Since then, America has been through wars, natural disasters, and economic highs and lows. Rochester companies have had their ups and downs, but one constant, Tom Walls. Tom Walls has stood the test of time. A Wahlburger and a frosted mug of root beer on a sunny afternoon brings us closer to our past and reminds us of what is good. My name is Riley. I am Tom Walls.
Share the good times. Tom Walls.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. Today is not White House Wednesday, but we're going to talk about some national issues anyways, because this conversation could be happening in your town for Talk of the Town.
Yeah. Oh, you're really stretching here. I know we wanted to cover this topic Friday, honestly, but hey, listen, I know this is more of a national issue, but next week I'm going to have a guest in to talk about zoning. I am going to absolutely nerd out on like local governance policies. It is going to be very interesting. At least I think, because it controls how building is done in your town and what government restrictions are put in place to prevent you from adding stuff to your house or starting a new business or whatever it is, opening a factory. And so we're going to talk about all that stuff and really nerd out on that. So next week we'll have all the talk of the town you could ever want.
There you go.
Plug for that show.
So it'll be either extremely interesting, which we know is what it's going to be, or you'll need a bib for your drool while you're sleeping.
No, power through it. It's important. You need to know these local issues because this is how, government happens at the local level. And honestly, there's so much control that happens at that level. It would blow your mind. But
yeah, no, absolutely. It is. Is well worth knowing about for sure. And I never cease to be amazed as to like some of the ridiculous zoning laws and policies that either towns or cities put on people, including one that we talked about like a long time ago when I first started doing the show like 2 years ago, where some places like banned the ability to like hang dry your laundry. Like, stuff like that.
It's awesome.
So, yeah.
Man, gotta love some of those weird local laws.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
we'll talk about next week. I'll be in studio at least. I don't know about Andrew. I don't
Yeah,
know where
me
you're gonna
neither.
be
We'll
doing
find
it
out.
from. Yeah.
We'll see.
but like I said, it should be a
so-
good show. But yeah.
Yeah. So,
talk about
today's
pardons.
topic is presidential pardons. As you guys know, we did plan on talking about this on Friday. We ran out of time. I promised we'd come back to it. I wanted to give Kevin the chance to fill us in on some of this stuff. But before we do that, I want to talk about the history of the presidential pardon, what the president can and cannot do with a pardon, kind of some of those nitty-gritty details that seem to get lost when the media talks about these things. So first and foremost, the presidential pardon goes all the way back to George Washington. So President number one, I believe he pardoned like 16 people. So it has basically always been a part of the presidency. The power is given to them in Article 2 of the Constitution. And Alexander Hamilton, which you guys probably are familiar with that name, he actually wrote about presidential pardons and defended them in Federalist Paper 74. So it's pretty well ingrained in the founding of our country. And oh, go ahead.
No, let's read off the part of the Constitution too that talks about pardon as well, just so people can look, break out your pocket constitutions. I know you all got them. Unless you're driving, don't do that. But it says in Article 2 is the president shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And we're going to actually talk about that impeachment piece too a little bit down the line here. One thing that I found pretty interesting, until around 1886, all presidential pardons were actually handwritten by the president. And I was like, okay, so why'd they stop? Because of the typewriter. So, at first I thought it was like the presidents being lazy because they're like, they were handwritten by the president. And then after that, they were prepared by administrative staff and only signed by the president. I'm like, wow, they just decided to be lazy? No, it was because everything was switching over to typewriters. And so the president wasn't taking typing class, I guess. So they made that change. All presidential pardons were publicly available for public review until 1934. For some reason, they stopped and wasn't available to the public anymore. This changed back in 1981 when we created the Office of the Pardon Attorney, where people can send their requests for pardons and stuff, and it'll be research, background check done on it, all this stuff before it's brought to the president for recommendation. And since this date, they have all been made public again. So I was trying to figure out why it changed in 1934. I did not find that. I'm sure it's floating around somewhere, but I couldn't even find sources to cite exactly what the change was, which, why it would have been made. So that's a little bit of the history. Let me tell you just what the pardons actually are. So Kevin had already read the part of the Constitution. A full pardon can basically be given only for federal crimes. So that's really, really important to know that it's only federal crimes. It does not extend into state crimes because, ironically, and this is a ruling, I think, from the Supreme Court, it's that an offense that solely violates state law is not considered an offense against the United States. And the presidential pardon only extends to offenses against the United States. So kind of an interesting determination there. A pardon isn't just undoing a conviction. It can be a reprieve granted for commuting a sentence, lessening its severity, or both. It can totally undo everything except for the actual charges. Also, what I found interesting is if you're given a presidential pardon, you don't have to accept it. You, as the beneficiary, actually have to accept the pardon for it to be valid.
Wait, has anyone ever turned it down?
Yes, actually, there have been people who turned it down, and I'm going to tell you why they turned it down. One of the reasons is, and this was ruled in the Supreme Court in Burdick versus the United States, that the pardon carries an imputation of guilt, and accepting that pardon is a confession of such guilt. So if you truly felt that you were not guilty of this crime, accepting the presidential pardon is also accepting that you were actually guilty of the crime. And there have been people, I could look at the break at my notes or at the links that I have cited to see who denied it. But there were people that were like, nope, I'm not accepting this pardon. I'm not guilty. So,
All right.
yeah, it's
I'm not
happened.
going to get that logic. He's like, hey, no, look, then I'm forever down in history books as having committed this crime, even though I didn't.
Yep.
And the pardon's kind of evidence of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that pretty interesting. You can apply for a pardon, but you can only do it within 5 years of your sentencing. So that's one thing to know. Once again, these are federal crimes only. However, the president can go back as far as they want. So if somebody whispers in the president's ear and says, hey, you should pardon this person from 12 years ago or whatever, the president can do that. You just can't write an official request for a pardon 5 years after your sentencing. Another thing that's kind of interesting about pardons, we talked about how it's essentially an admission of guilt. Your pardon does not expunge your record or the offense. So when you fill out paperwork, even if you have a presidential pardon, you still have to put, yes, you were convicted of that felony. And then you can include the information showing that you were pardoned, but you're obligated to say, yes, I was convicted of this federal conviction. And this brings up the next question, which is, okay, so if I was pardoned, do I get my right to vote back? Do I get my right to run for office again? These sort of rights that are taken away with, say, a felony. The pardon kind of has no bearing on that, because most of these regulations are imposed by state rather than the federal government. So it's up to the state to choose and determine whether or not they will allow you to have access to those rights again with your federal pardon. So a lot of stuff that I didn't know, stuff that is kind of interesting. And we actually have seen in New York lawmakers, writing legislation to essentially ignore presidential pardons and be able to re-prosecute them and carry out those convictions.
Yeah. And it almost kind of seems like double jeopardy in some of these cases, because what New York's trying to do is say, if some of the people that are around President Trump are convicted of certain crimes, that the state can retry them if President Trump pardons them. But there's something that doesn't seem right about that, and they call it a double jeopardy loophole, but yeah, it seems like that those restrictions are in place for a very good reason.
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting, and I kind of wonder how the state can prosecute a federal crime. That's the other kind of question I have.
Sometimes there's overlapping crimes, and man, I really wish, I was hoping Bob would be here for this discussion, because Bob knows way more about this legal stuff than either of us do.
Sure, yeah, Bob's the expert.
Yeah, but yeah, there's sometimes there's crimes that kind of look similar enough, or sometimes it's the same act, but the way the statute is written is slightly different on the federal and state laws, so they can kind of do it that way. But the controversy comes if it's the same act, but it violates a slightly differently worded statute, I think. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so fact check me on this, but I think if it's the same act, that's where the controversy comes in. Is okay, can you prosecute someone twice for the same act if it violates slightly different laws in these particular cases, particularly if the president has already pardoned someone for that singular act. Now, if they've done multiple things, you can get them on other stuff, but...
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting discussion. So guys, we're going to take our break here. When we come back, I'm going to hit one more thing on pardons, which is self-pardons. Is that possible? Has it happened? And then we're going to talk about the people that Trump pardoned recently. So we'll talk about that when we come back on Radio Free New York.
More than twice the power.
WYSL.
More powerful FM 92.1, FM 95.5 West, and 1040 AM WYSL Avon Rochester.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. A bit of wet snow out there. Could be a slushy inch, maybe a couple of inches in the hills. Temps in the low 30s. Wednesday, morning snow, rain snow mixed in the afternoon. Temps near 40. Could be some snow on Thursday. Could be several inches of snow turning windy and colder. Temps dropping into the 20s. I'm Rich Cadelia, WYSL.
It's here, the biggest President's Day event in town. And it's all at Patrick Buick GMC. Everybody's picking Patrick, your exclusive truck and SUV dealer. Choose from all kinds of GMC Sierras, Yukons, Acadias, and Terrains. And now the all-new Buick Encore GX, plus Envisions and Enclaves. If you want an SUV or truck, Patrick has access to over 1,000 of them. Here's more reasons why everybody's picking Patrick. 35 years in business, over 3,000 five-star online reviews, and we just increased our rebates, added auto show bonus cash, and lowered our lease payments. See everything at PatrickBuickGMC.com. It's our annual President's Day event. It's all over March 2nd. Patrick, we are professional grade. Corner of Lehigh Station and West Henrietta Road. Don't miss Patrick's President's Day event and see why everybody's picking Patrick. Patrick Buick GMC in Henrietta.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Ah, those moments in life when things are just a little too close.
Like the time you tried to pet your neighbor's angry dog. Uh-oh, down boy.
Let's face it, sometimes close is too close. Unless we're talking about the closest gaming action around at nearby Finger Lakes Gaming and Racetrack. With over 1,100 gaming machines, thoroughbred racing, a delicious buffet, and live entertainment, the action at Finger Lakes is always close by. Visit us on Route 96 Farmington and FingerLakesGaming.com. Must be 18 to play video gaming machines.
Staying active and socially engaged is critical to seniors' health. Home Helpers offers care services that can fill the gaps for a richer, more fulfilling life. Services may include companionship, cleaning, making meals, providing transportation to doctor's appointment, church services and shopping, medication management, exercising, and so much more. Home Helpers can help your loved ones stay active and healthy at home. Call 585-334-0999 or HomeCareRochesterNY.com.
The Livingston County Department of Health reminds you and your family, be sure you're prepared for emergencies by creating your own at-home emergency response plan. Prepare a kit including non-perishable food, water, flashlight, radio, batteries, blankets, and medications to supply you and your family for at least 2 weeks. Place these supplies in a secure place in your home. For more information on emergency preparedness, call the Livingston County Department of Health at 243-7299.
Who will protect you and your loved ones if there are not guns in citizens' hands? The police? The military? Not so. Join Scope. Get the facts. www.scopeny2a.org.
Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. I've got Kevin Wilson here with me as well. And I say here with me loosely because we're miles and miles apart, but we're connected via technology.
Yeah,
So
we have the technology.
today sorry, say it again.
So we have the technology, yes.
We have the technology, absolutely. So today we're talking about presidential pardons, what they are, what the history is. We've had some recently. We're going to talk about those too. But first, I want to hit the topic of self-pardons, because self-pardons have come up a number of times, including kind of recently. Trump tweeted that, if something happened, he would just pardon himself. And so then follows the question of whether or not a president can pardon themselves. Is that possible? Is that legal? And it turns out that's an unresolved, untested issue. It hasn't actually happened yet. However, during the Watergate scandal, President Nixon's lawyer suggested that self-pardon could be legal. The Department of Justice issued a memorandum opinion stating that the president cannot pardon himself. However, the memo kind of laid out a scenario that would be possible. And that would be under the 25th Amendment of the United States Constitution, the president could declare himself unable to perform his duties and could appoint a vice president as the acting president. That acting president could then pardon the president, and thereafter the president could either resign or resume his duties in office. So that is maybe a loophole. However, I want to point out that there is Kevin's like smiling and laughing over here. Is it you want to jump in real quick or?
Oh, that's such a terrible idea. Like, I know like there may legally be a loophole for this, but man, like Congress has got to get on like fixing that constitutionally. I think it's such a disaster in waiting to have the president be able to pardon himself or herself. Like, oh, I can commit any crimes I want and I'll just pardon myself and it's fine. I keep going on. No, I mean, and I know impeachment's supposed to be a check on that, but let's be realistic. It ain't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do want to touch really quickly the impeachment piece, too, because the Constitution even says, except in impeachment. So kind of how that has been explained is that the presidential pardoning process cannot undo any impeachment, and it cannot stop any impeachment proceedings. So just kind of important to throw that out there because I believe oh, go ahead.
Okay, as we've mentioned before, it's that impeachment's a political process, right? So since it's a political process and it's not necessarily for a violation of law, it's just a violation of fitness for office, which can sometimes be a violation of law. Then you can't undo the power of the Congress to be able to impeach a judge or an officer of the United States.
Yeah, and you can't reverse it. You can't stop the proceedings. None of that. That appears to be the limitation. So impeachment and state-only issues. Those are the two limitations. That is the potential loophole for a self-pardon. Worth mentioning, I guess. And that's where the history and the update on that kind of wraps up. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin now to talk about the pardons that were made recently.
Yeah, so let's talk about the headliner, the one that a lot of people are talking about, and that is good old Rod Blagojevich. I'm going to pronounce his name wrong 100 times. Do you remember who that is, Andrew?
Is that the guy from, I want to say, Illinois, the governor? Is that who we're talking about?
That's the one. So the former governor of Illinois, who was convicted of trying to sell President Obama's Senate seat which he vacated when he won the presidency, he tried to sell it. He got caught and he went to prison. He was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison, of which he had served 8. And President Trump pardoned him. Just last week, I think last Tuesday was when it officially went down. And, he said in a tweet on the 19th, it said he served 8 years in prison with many remaining. He paid a big price, another Comey and gang deal, ! So that's one. He sent out several tweets about it being a corrupt bargain, and that he had served long enough that he should be able to go back to his family, all that stuff. the interesting discussion around it is that I think a lot of people understandably frame this as like, why on earth is President Trump pardoning this very clearly corrupt guy, a corrupt Democrat from Illinois, who was on The Apprentice too, so it's someone that Trump knew personally. Like, why on earth would he pardon the swamp? I think that's one of the articles I sent over to you is Trump pardons the swamp.
Yeah, and that's actually my initial question, right? Like, you look at this whole situation and you go, okay, so this guy is like clearly a corrupt person. This guy's not even a Republican, right? So theoretically, it wouldn't be like somebody in the Republican Party whispering into somebody's ears, like, "Hey, get this guy out." And the crimes, I think, are pretty bad in terms of what crimes are. So where's his mind on this? I mean, what's he thinking? And also, I think I saw Trump tweet somewhere where Trump said, yeah, he was on my show, but I don't know the guy. Like, but I hear he's a really good person or something like that.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, so if I want to give kind of the other side of this for the people who are concerned about criminal justice, who are pro-Trump, the argument that they've made to me is that essentially this crime, did not deserve that level of punishment, and that many of the crimes that people are serving federal prison time for aren't deserving of this level of punishment. 8 years is an incredibly long time to spend away from your family, to spend in a federal prison, and so he had been punished enough. And that if we apply this logic to other places, then that's actually a great criminal justice move to pardon people, including people who are unsympathetic, like Rod Blagojevich. And he said, I mean, President Trump, of course, muddies things up when he talks about, like, it was a prosecution by Comey and Fitzpatrick and stuff, who he has a vendetta against because of the investigations against him and his whole stuff with the FBI. But I think it's worth asking, like, is that a good point? And Rod Blagojevich was not the only guy who was pardoned, too. There's a person named Crystal Munoz who had served 12 years in prison for a nonviolent drug offense. She was convicted in 2007 of assisting a marijuana smuggling operation because she drew a map of a dirt road in Texas, and the map was used by drug smugglers. So the DEA traced that map back to her and gave her a 19-year prison sentence, even though she never actually possessed or sold any of those drugs.
Wow. So let me ask you this, and I don't know if you know the answer or not, and maybe one of the listeners knows the answer so they can comment in or call in. But how do these pardons and these crimes equate to people that have had similar sentencing, similar crimes? Is this something that we could look at and be like, yeah, you know what, everybody else got 8 years and this guy got 14, so eight is like the standard, that's the status quo, and this guy was just like abused? Or is it like everybody's getting that and these people are getting special like treatment?
Yeah, so here's the terrible part, is that like those sentences, from all the research I've done on this, aren't unusual, right? So that's what normal people would get, and in a lot of these cases, people actually got less bad sentences because they had great lawyers to be able to protect them and to argue it down. Whereas if you are not all that wealthy and you're not able to afford great lawyers, then you get the book thrown at you. And this is coming up again in the Roger Stone case, because Roger Stone, of course, was convicted of was it lying to Congress and witness intimidation, and he got, I think it was like 36 months. I'm trying to find the article of it right now. But the point was, he was convicted, and the controversy that ended up happening is that after President Trump tweeted about the recommended sentence for him, which was also pretty lengthy, and based on Department of Justice guidelines, the Department of Justice under William Barr went back and changed the recommendation to lower the sentence recommendations, saying that the recommendations themselves were unfair, and that caused all four prosecutors in the case to resign, which is interesting. So they ended up resigning from the case because of this, because they were frustrated. They felt like that the sentencing recommendation for Roger Stone, which was, man, I'm so annoyed I can't find the dang article on it right now, but it was a pretty long time. It was like over a decade. They thought that was fair. President Trump's going out saying that's unfair. He should be given a more lenient sentence for the crimes that he is accused of. And I know when I had a conversation with Bob Savage offline, he said, some of these process crimes, like they are carrying extremely heavy penalties, and it's worth looking at again.
Yeah,
so I mean, what do you think of that so far?
So, yeah, I think that we need to. We probably have to take a break. So what I'm gonna do is let's talk about this when we come back from the break, because I think we got some pretty big issues to talk about here. We'll be back in a moment on Radio Free New York.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Aircraft Environmental Systems proudly supports Radio Free New York. Rochester-based leaders in climate simulation chambers for America's R&D laboratories. We're experts in troubleshooting, calibrations, custom designs, and consulting for more than 40 years. Industry pioneers, we created the first ever fleet of temperature, humidity, and altitude test chambers available to rent coast to coast. Trained and trusted by environmental chamber manufacturers, we are ACES. Find us at acesinc.com.
Human trafficking is when someone is being forced, tricked, or coerced to engage in a sex trade or forced labor. If you're a kid and forced to sell sex, drugs, or work against your will, that's trafficking. You're not a criminal, and there is help available. Call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 888-373-7888 or text Be Free. Sponsored by the Livingston County Safe Harbors Human Trafficking Task Force.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. I've got Kevin Wilson in the Liberty Closet, and we're talking about pardons. And I think the question that we're asking, you're probably asking, the media's asking, everybody's asking, is were these pardons a form of criminal justice reform, or are they just helping out your buddies or somebody's buddies?
Yeah.
You know, is this the right thing to do? I think that's the question.
So I want to start with two things with this. One is that the actual sentencing recommendation for Roger Stone was 7 to 9 years, which Trump said was horrible and unfair. So I got that wrong. And the other thing, because I know someone's already thinking it or typing it right now, is like, well, what about all the pardons that President Obama did and George Bush and especially Bill Clinton did? Yeah, look, I'm not going to defend those either. Like a lot of the reasons behind, particularly Bill Clinton's pardons, appear shady. The
Clintons, come on, Kevin. No.
Yeah, I know. Big surprise, but like there's a lot of suggestion that maybe he was pardoning a lot of his buddies, including his brother, who was pardoned as well. So again, this isn't about me saying that Trump is uniquely terrible on this issue, but I think it's a question worth asking, right? Like is President Trump has used his pardon power to pardon people who have been victims of the war on drugs, and that is awesome, and I think he should be applauded for that. And then you get people like Rod Blagojevich, man, struggling today, who, he's kind of a head scratcher, right? Like, why is he dipping into that? Or, even just, he hasn't pardoned Roger Stone because Roger Stone was only just convicted, but like, he's kind of jumped into that case to comment on the fairness of his sentencing. And so, again, the question is like, is President Trump applying this logic across the board to people who are caught up in this bad system, or is he picking a few people here and there, but pardoning his friends mostly? And then how do we kind of square the two?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got one take on this, and then another thing that I'm gonna bring up, and hopefully we have time to wrestle this. But my first thing is, if Trump is doing the right thing, let's just say it. Like, let's just say if Trump is doing the right thing, why not pardon everybody in similar cases, similar circumstances? Why not come out of the gate and say, you know what, these nonviolent drug offenses, let's pardon everybody. Like, let's just go out, let's do it. I think that's the right thing to do, except for in cases when these people are committing like actual violent offenses against other people. I don't know. You can probably pardon one offense and not touch the others. I'm not sure. But if you can, sure, get rid of all the nonviolent offenses. If they actually took violence against somebody, let them do their time for that. I think that would be like a big criminal justice statement, especially being applied equally. Doesn't look like it's being applied equally, which brings about a question I have. And that is, why now? A lot of people have said, why would Trump do this now? Why not wait until after he's elected when things are safe? Why is he doing this a few months before the election almost? I mean, not a few months. Yeah. We've got 9.5 months, maybe 8 months till the election.
Gonna be forever.
Yeah, it could be. But the question is, why do it now? Is there any political capital to gain here? I'm not sure. Is this a sign that they're worried about re-election and they're getting it done before the election happens? I don't know. But I think that's a fair question that people should also be asking. Like, why take this move that people are considering pretty risky, doesn't look good? Why do it now?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Why Blago? And it's like some of the stuff's all over the place, and some of the people, are donors of the president as well. So it doesn't look great on that end. I think the political liability would be in pardoning them, not the other way around. So yeah, that's a great question. And again, I look at these things, and the arguments I've heard, at least from conservatives, is like, again, look how many other pardons that other presidents have done, and President Trump hasn't done that many. I don't think it's a good thing that President Trump hasn't pardoned a lot of people yet. I think that presidents should generally be pardoning a lot of people frequently, especially when they know that they're parts of our criminal justice system at the federal level that they think are unjust, and they have the ability to do something about it. and libertarian presidential candidates have run on platforms of trying to do something about it and saying that they would, if elected, pardon people when they are able to get into office. And so, again, I hope President Trump does more of this. I just, sometimes, like, I wish there are moments like this where I sort of want to like the guy, but, like, I wish he would shut his mouth and just, like, stop sticking his foot in his mouth about things. Sure. Again, like, I think he kind of makes a fair point about, like, the Roger Stone, like, original sentencing recommendation, but the way he does it is just so ham-fisted that, like, it makes everyone think that he is acting corruptly in that process. And if he could take that logic and apply it elsewhere, that would be a great thing. If he could, like, publicly talk about how that principle applies to, like, all these other cases and not just the cases of people who are on his campaign team and have stayed loyal to him, that would be great. Please do that.
Yeah, and I think that's my point with some of the questions is, like, if we want to make a statement, let's make it equally. Scott on Facebook says, when you like the person and agree, it's reform. If you hate them, it's corruption. And I would say, Scott, that's a decently valid point when it comes to the media, but I want to encourage people to look at it differently and look at, like, you know what? Maybe I like this guy, maybe I don't like this guy. Was this action right? And if it was right, how do we get it to the point where they apply it equally to everybody else who's in the same situation? I think that could actually drive reform. And then maybe Congress looks at things and says, wow, every single time somebody gets arrested or federally prosecuted for this one crime, they get a pardon. This crime's pretty useless. Maybe people can start running on repealing this crime, and then people can argue that, we should repeal it because it's going to get pardoned anyways. I think that is a way to drive change. I don't know whether or not you like Trump that's happening. I don't think it's happening, but I think there's an opportunity that it could happen if that approach was taken.
Yeah, no, and that's, again, what I'd hope. And again, I said I agreed with Scott, but I agree with you, your analysis of that, Andrew. It's like, we should be looking at these situations individually and not just through a partisan lens. Like, that's generally what I would advocate across the board, is like, try not to get caught up in the tribalism of these things. Sort through the mainstream media narratives, because you have, like, the people on the progressive side of the media who are screaming about corruption, and you have people on the right who are defending every single move that the president makes. But I think it's worth questioning the president's motives in these situations, but at the same time, I do see some of the good that it's accomplishing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a people and as citizens, we should be questioning our elected officials, right? We should never just say, hey, that's great, I like this guy, what he's doing must be right. It doesn't matter how great they are. We should always be holding them accountable. And if these elected officials are truly good people, they would want to be held accountable. They would want to not just be blindly followed. They want critically thinking individuals to keep them accountable because, hey, let's be honest. Everybody calls DC the swamp, right? So if you're hanging out in the swamp, whether you want to be or not, that stuff's going to rub off, and you need the people to hold you accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we're out of time. All right.
Yeah, we are out of time. So, guys, thank you so much for listening to Radio Free New York. We will be back tomorrow for White House Wednesday. Same time, same place.